Is there a cure for loneliness? Is loneliness caused by the absence of people or the absence of self? I think that oftentimes uh, people fail to realize what I think loneliness is. And I think that any type of loneliness or feeling of alone is not caused by the absence of people per se, but more so the absence of understanding. There can be times in life where you're surrounded and bombarded with people and you still feel that feeling. And we have to realize it's not the solitude that we fear, it's who we are in solitude that we fear. It's that trying to escape from the self without doing anything. It's like, sitting down with yourself and realizing that you haven't taken the time to truly understand who you are as a person. So I guess that should be kind of our main goal and objective, is to stop trying to escape the self, but to work on the self that we have. We're only gifted with one preconceived identity. We only have one person. We can change fundamentally who we are in a matter of time. I think that who we are is just a reaction to our outside circumstance. And if we're able to change our reaction, then we can effectively change who we are. But we also need to change how we react to ourselves. I feel like in life, a lot of us are just overly critical and analytical of our own actions. We all make mistakes. We all, you know, mess up sometimes. That's just a fact of how things go. But in that messing up, we have to realize that we're also human. I feel like a lot of us dehumanize ourselves in the way that we don't give ourselves grace, give ourselves understanding in what we do. We treat ourselves as if we know everything we knew. Like, we treat ourselves as if all the past events in traumas, issues, have the knowledge of today, as if we were there and we had exactly the information we have now, and we didn't. We have to give ourselves the grace to make mistakes. Humans are complicated creatures, and to have all the control over all your actions is completely unrealistic. A lot of who we are is kind of trapped. It's not too much exposed. I forgot who said the quote, but it was like 99% of the who you are is invisible and untouchable. And I agree. A lot of who we are is not external interaction. It's not physical. It's who we are internally. And that's not necessarily always going to be determined by external factors. And which is why I think it's important to focus on creating that definition for yourself. I feel like not nobody, but a lot of us have never taken the time to define who we are. Like, we're asked, and then we're asked like who we are, and we say our name. But like, who are you really? Who are you behind that name? Who are you besides the reactions you have? Who are you besides the memories you have? Can you ever escape yourself? Is the question. And I think the answer is no. I think that the fundamental premise of escaping yourself or escapism is unrealistic. You can't abandon every single aspect of your identity. You need some type of foundation, and that has to be built by you. And if it's built by you, then it's you. Like, I think people fail to realize that they're still themselves, regardless of what type of cup they try to put themselves into. And I feel like once you put yourself in that restriction, that stuckness, that's when you start to lose track of who you want to be and who you are. We only learn ourselves for so many things. And we are so used to surface level interaction that all we know or all we ask ourselves about is those small social things, those small little instantiations of bits and pieces of our personality, which really have nothing to do with us. Like, if you ask somebody to describe themselves, they're not going in depth. I don't think a lot of people know how to go in depth. Even myself, if I was prompted with a question like, who are you really? I probably couldn't answer that. But I think that's somewhat of an issue in today's society. If we can't have a definition for ourselves, how do we feel justified in defining others? So I guess find a definition for yourself. There's no point in, sitting there and kind of muddling through life. It's one thing to go with the flow. It's one thing to, allow yourself to be part of this, infinite and nothing in the same second. But that doesn't mean there's no conscious effort. That just means that you've done conscious effort so much that you no longer have to. And I feel like a lot of people misconceive what that kind of means with going with the flow. You can't go with the flow if what you have is essentially not. You can't flow down a river if you're too heavy. You know, you're gonna sink to the bottom. And I feel like a lot of us carry so much, but we have to realize what we're putting behind us. What we fail to address is what we're carrying on our backs. So the only implication is to lighten your load. Be able to forgive yourself for being impacted by certain things. Be able to forgive others to an extent for what has occurred in the past. I think that a lot of times we worry about things that just can't and won't serve us. Like mundane things that happen on a day to day, like if somebody called you a name on the street or something, and you take the time to think about that. You take the time to internalize that and let it impact you. Justifiably so. It's justified. It's a perfectly reasonable thing to do. But I feel like that's seeking control from yourself. You're letting that other person have that kind of impact on you when in reality they're probably not thinking about that occurrence at all. And I think if you have that consciousness and knowing that they're not worried about it, then why should you? I think that this loneliness or the absence of understanding is also stemming from this. We romanticize others, romanticize how much their thoughts and opinions matter. And to an extent, they do. We're in a social world. I can't say that opinions of others don't matter. But what I can say is the main opinion that does matter in this world is the one we have of ourselves. It's not so important what others think of you as much as it is how you think of yourself. And if you're letting other people define who you are, then you've already lost. You can always use somebody as a foundation. You can always use your friends, be like, oh, blah, blah, and they tell you a little bit about your personality, and you can choose to accept that or you can choose to decline it. But I think that ultimate decision is up to you. And a lot of us don't. We don't take the time to access the questions that we constantly are asking others. We seek validation and attention from others, but do we ever give validation and attention to ourselves? How can we expect from others what we fail to give to ourselves, is what I'm trying to get at. So, is there a cure for loneliness? I guess the only way to cure it would be to enjoy who you are while you're alone. You can't be lonely if you enjoy the person you're alone with.